My aunt told me that when I was younger, I stood up on the bed in the middle of the night and urinated in her face. Twice. What have other people told you that you did but you can't remember doing it? I used to take off all my clothes and just say happened as if aliens had done it. I started little nudist revolutions in kindergarten. When my little sister was born, I was a little less than 2 years old. My dad wrote that I spent a lot of time yelling about how they should put that back, referring to my new baby sister. My nephew at age 2 used to yell at his parents to take his baby sister back to the hospital. Now he's his sister's biggest fan. When I was 2, I was at a restaurant with my family. A dude sitting next to us being friendly and all asks how old I am. Haha, and apparently I poked him straight in both eyes with my stubby fingers and yelled I am too. Like a beast. I was either 3 or 4 and at church with my mom. Apparently, the atmosphere of tradition and ritual had an effect on me. I stood up on one of the benches, raised my hand to the ceiling, and yelled, "By the power of Grayskull, I have the power." My mother was embarrassed, but she tells me that no one had any idea what I was saying. I like to think everyone there just thought that this little kid had some sort of religious awakening. I laughed for a straight minute. I'm sure someone understood. When I was 3 years old, my parents were driving to look at a house in an area I had never been before. I was in my car seat in the back. I poked my head up, looked out the window and said, "Mummy, Daddy, my children are buried there," pointing at a cemetery. Freaked my parents out at the time. Now they wish they had taken me to show them where they were buried. When I was 7 years old, an airplane and helicopter collided over my elementary school and fell into the playground. As you can imagine, it was a pretty traumatic experience. Apparently my emotional response was to draw pictures of my parents and my brother's gravestones, seal the picture in an envelope, hand it to my mother and say, "Give this to me when I am a grown man." You know how parents tell those stories about freaky things their kids would say to them when they were very little, like "I'm your grandfather"? Yeah, my mom told me I used to casually come out with when I was a squirrel. Apparently I tried to pet a baby hedgehog when I was 4, but the mother hedgehog did not like me, so I freaked out and was chased around my yard by a hedgehog for 10 minutes. I told a friend about this many years later. He joked and said that I'm Dr. Robotnik. I am afraid of bugs to a pretty high degree. I am also a large man. One day I was gently pulled from a restful sleep by a soft buzzing. I slowly opened my eyes and spied a wasp getting up to waspy shenanigans a few inches in front of my face. Then, I immediately found myself in a different room, still naked. My lovely and very petite girlfriend at the time tells me I punched her in the chest pretty hard, yelled "wasp," jumped out of bed, ran out of the room, and slammed the door. I'm sure she's right, but I like to think I somehow gained the ability to teleport in that moment, because it makes me feel less bad about the whole thing. This is funny because I do the same thing when I see brown house centipedes, those ones that look like giant eyelashes running across the floor. I used to have night terrors, which is like sleepwalking, except you're hallucinating and crap's scary. There are many stories of this, but the most famous, or infamous, is the witch. So apparently, there was a witch in my bedroom. I screamed bloody murder, and woke up the entire apartment complex. My mom was trying to figure out what was wrong, but all I would say was, "She's in there, don't let her get me." My mom would try to go into the room to see what was going on, but I would not let her in. I was throwing my entire 60 pounds against her, trying to stop her from going in. Of course, I didn't give a crap if my brother and sister got eaten by the terrible witch. At the time, I really loved my stuffed animals and wanted to protect them, so I would sprint into the room, grab one toy, then sprint back out and put it in the living room. I did this for many toys. I have no recollection of the event, and when I was told about it some 5 years later, I denied it vehemently, embarrassed that I would do such a thing. My aunt claims I had a huge love of being naked when I was 2 or 3, and I used to frequently jump out of the bathroom and go look everybody. I'm the kid while she and my grandparents were over to visit. She claims I once followed this up by running outside and across the street so that I could do naked laps around the park while all the neighbors looked on in horror. My parents and brother corroborate this story. I smell conspiracy. My brothers as I used to have nacky time after our baths when we were younger. I don't think we ever bolted out of the house though. Good on ya, an adventurer to the core. A few nights ago I talked to my girlfriend for 20 minutes in my sleep. The entire conversation consisted of me complimenting her. I also kept quoting the "as you wish" line from The Princess Bride. That's pretty adorable. At a party with some of my friends, I got super freaking wasted, completely blacked out, and to this day, I don't remember anything that transpired except the beginning of the drinking and taking 2 LARP swords out of my car. But apparently, a neighbor called on our party, saying we were too loud. An officer came by and told us to keep it down. We had the music blaring, and we were all having LARP foam sword battles in the backyard. Loser had to do chug out of the beer bong. I had lost a few times, so by the time the officer showed up, I was completely blackout drunk. So when they opened the door for the officer, I thought it was one of our friends joining the party. So I shouted from the back of the room, "Hey butthole, come sword fight with me." The police officer replied, "What?" I shouted again, apparently completely unaware that it was a freaking cop. "Come foam sword fight MEUP. Unless you're afraid of losing." The police officer was a man of honor, so he accepted my duel. He fought with me in the backyard for 2 rounds. He kicked my butt. My friends say that he even tried to go easy on my drunken butt. After he won, he held the beer bong for me while I drank my punishment. Then he left. We turned the music down and I passed out on the floor. I wouldn't have believed the story myself, but my friends were fervent in saying that it really freaking happened. There is a video of him holding the beer bong for me somewhere on one of my friends' phones. I think I'm going to text around and see if I can get it to show you guys. Sorry guys, I don't think I'm gonna post the video. It might get him in trouble. TLDR. Got blackout drunk and had a foam sword fight with a really badass cop. When I was little, I called my little brother Hosey because he cried a lot and leaked water like a hose, so I wasn't brilliant. I was like 5. Apparently, one day we were at the grocery store and the cashier tried to hand a candy bar we'd gotten to me instead of bagging it. But it was my brother, so I said give it to the hose and gestured to him. I was there with my mum and aunt, and according to them the cashier definitely thought I said give it to the hose and gestured to them. Don't remember this at all. Even at 5, you are a king pimp. I'm usually knocked out when I go to sleep, and it has happened quite a lot of times that I get a phone call while asleep, talk perfectly normal, even make plans, and then have absolutely no recollection of it. So, about a week ago, I was sleeping with my girlfriend of 2 weeks, and during the night I turned to her and told her I love her. That was one awkward conversation. The next morning, I was fascinated with a girl's lady bits when I was a kid and would often walk up to some girl or woman and ask them if I could see it. I don't think they knew what I meant, but I tried my damnedest. My parents say when I was 7 years old I grabbed a cat by its tail, spun it around and threw it on the wall. I have no memory of that happening. Yes, everyone loved cat. Not me. By my ex's mom told me a story about him. When he was a toddler, one night he crapped himself, as toddlers tend to do. He then got into his mom's bed and discovered she was wearing hair curlers, so he decided to stick poop in them. His mom woke up to the smell of crap and spent half of the morning looking for the source around the apartment, other than her son, only to discover it in her own hair when she undid the curlers. TLDR. A truly crappy hairdo. That's it. I'm locking my door when my kid becomes a toddler. You buttholes have scared the crap out of me. I also have a sleep urinating story. The bathroom was always down the hall and to the left from my bedroom. One night, when I was young, I slept in my parents' bedroom at the opposite end of the house. Apparently, I got up and went to the bathroom, walked down the hall and turned left. My mother found me urinating in the kitchen bin. Afterwards I proceeded to walk into the lounge room, turn off the light and fall asleep on the lounge, leaving my grandmother knitting in the dark and very confused. I was a really depressed child. My family was incredibly supportive, but people in elementary school were a bunch of buttholes, and at that time I really had no idea how to deal with them. Parents and teachers can only do so much. I just learned, earlier this year, that I threatened to kill myself when I was 9. I have absolutely no recollection of this whatsoever. I remember being sad, but never that sad. Now that I think about it, I remember very little about my 4th grade. I wouldn't be surprised if I just completely blocked it out because it sucked. I sort of want to go back in time and give little me a big hug and tell her it does get better. When I was around 7 or 8 I tried strangling myself because I remember feeling like I just wanted to die. That's weird because I haven't even thought about that for years. Apparently as a child I went to my brother's room, took all his blankets and threw them out the window. Then I went back to my room and went back to sleep. He woke me up immediately and started yelling at me, but I didn't remember doing it at all. When I was only about 4 years old, we had a pet rabbit. One of a long line of them. It was a dwarf rabbit of some description. Apparently, my parents heard me making a ruckus in the kitchen. They came through to find me chasing the rabbit with a bottle of oil, laughing merrily. It was absolutely soaked in cooking oil already and was making lines of oil all over the floor. They took the oil off me and caught the rabbit. Not an easy task. Then washed it as best they could. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't remove all the oil, and the rabbit died during the night. I don't remember the rabbit, nor why I thought it needed oiled. My mother bought it up at a birthday party. Thanks mum. TLDR. Oiled the pet rabbit to death when I was 4. In my case, I sorta have an excuse. My mother gave birth to me and I was given to her. Shortly after, I took a crap on her chest. She describes it as little rabbit turds. I still don't remember it. You were probably more drunk than that guy who had a sword fight with a cop. My parents told me that when I was a little kid, toddler or something, IDK for sure, I used to hear the ice cream van arrive in our area and would go off by myself and ask for an ice cream, then just walk off. Apparently this happened more than once. And my parents eventually realized and paid the guy who I had been swindling ice cream off with my cute baby charms. An addition to the story would be that every time I had got my ice cream I would have sat at the edge of the pavement sidewalk and nommed away, whilst a stream of liquid flowed down the road originating from me. Apparently I used to sit up in the middle of the night and scream loudly like I was being murdered or tortured. I don't remember it all and it really creeped my family out. Apparently when I was 6 back in my home country, I would walk around our little town with a button-up Hawaiian shirt, white undies and sunglasses on. It was also very common that I would go buy Coca-Cola which came in a bag with a straw. Suspicious capitalization. I kicked my mum hard enough to break her tailbone. Granted, this happened a few weeks before I was born, so while she still reminds me of it frequently, I don't think I can be held to blame. Nor do I remember it, surprisingly. Whoa, ouch. An ex told me that one night I sat bolt upright in bed, pointed across the room, and yelled, "Oh my god, it's Zack and Slater from Saved by the Bell," and promptly went back to sleep. When I was 8 or so, I attended a sleepover that had like 5 other girls there. When I woke up in the morning the mom accused me of having eaten all the Oreos left over from the night before while I was sleeping. I have never sleepwalked or sleep eaten or anything so I'm pretty sure one of the other girls framed me, but at the same time I can never conclusively prove that it wasn't me. When I was in kindergarten, I told to one of those big ladies who cooked for us that she looks like wild swine. She took it so seriously that she never spoke to me again. One of my mom's friend was missing front teeth and, while she was holding me, I pointed to her that she looks like an old hag without those teeth. I used to play with my grandpa's head while on his shoulders, telling him how big his head is. I also laughed and told him loudly that there is something hanging from his shorts when we once came to visit him. While driving home at the end of the weekend from our cottage, I reminded my dad how much he farted last night and how badly it smelled. Car, full of his friends, stayed dead quiet, after which my mother told me that it is not decent to talk about such things. Decorum was never my strongest side : My sisters and my grandmother left me alone to go to the store for 30 minutes when I was 2 years old. I was asleep. When they returned, they saw me grabbing crap out of my butt and eating it. Got very drunk this one time. My friend told me I overreacted to something he said. picked up a loaf of bread and proceeded to hit him with it multiple times. He even had a bruise. When I asked him what he said, apparently he said that Spider-Man was better than the Avengers. I refused to apologize on the terms of it being hilarious, though. We were in a shop at the time apparently, just in case you were wondering why I had some bread at hand. You were in the right there. My housemate, while at home over summer, got very drunk at the pub. Her parents got her home and her mum took her to bed. Before putting her in bed, her mum stripped her naked, making this all a little bit more amusing. 30 minutes later her mum hears a thud, goes back to my friend's room and finds her naked and wriggling on the floor. As soon as her mum gets close, my housemate starts licking her mum's foot. We're never going to let her live this down. Does drunk stupidity count? Apparently I poured half a liter of vodka Russian down my friend's back, then kicked him in the butt and ordered him to bring me water. Still feel bad about it, and I should. A long time ago I was in the hospital and put on some medication to calm me down. Ativan or some variation. Anyway, it really made me loopy and I don't remember anything I said that night. Apparently I was chatty. Anyway, I was told that when the nurse asked if I needed the restroom, I replied, "No way, I have the bladder of a Carol Burnett." I don't know what that means, but to this day it is still used to mock me. My mom recently told me this story. Apparently when I was 5 in kindergarten I heard some language on the bus that was meant only for adults. I unknowing screamed out, "Put me down you sucker," when my grandpa picked me up and carried me around at a dinner party he was hosting for many of his work and church friends. Calling your grandpa a mother sucker has bad implications. Apparently when we were younger, my older sister was having a bad dream and crying, and when she woke I was wiping her tears away. I have no recollection of this and still think she was having a dream inside a dream. When I was 3 I needed the toilet whilst walking through a B&Q, so I took a leak in one of the show toilets, then wandered around trying to find toilet paper. I feel so bad for the shop assistant. I have a bit of an issue with sleepwalking when I combine drinking with exhaustion. One time I passed out in bed and I sort of remember that, but the next morning I woke up naked on the couch and pee all over the kitchen floor. I have no idea what happened that night. Apparently I used to take toy snakes, reptiles and skeletons to church on a regular basis when I was still little. The one time I took a doll, like the other girls did, I took all its clothes off. Also, one I posted on another thread the other day. A few years ago after I had watched Paranormal Activity, there were a couple nights where I got during the middle of the night, turned to face the bed and stared at my sofa several minutes, then went back to bed. And one time at a party, I got blind drunk, took my jeans off and started wandering round the house. When people pointed out I had no trousers on, I drunkenly assured them that I definitely did. My brother and I shared a room when we were kids and had a bunk bed. He always was up top, I slept on bottom. One night he got sick and threw up over the side of the bed. Since our bed was a twin on top and full on bottom, he threw up directly on my bed. He then states I rolled over into it while still sleeping and slept through the night like that. I have to, not sure on my age, but I was in a cot so very young. Apparently I climbed out of the cot, crawled down the stairs and stole my mum's F-packet off the side. She then finds me munching on her cigarettes. Also when I was about 5 it was Christmas Day and I had just received a present from my uncle. My dad said to go say thank you. My uncle then said give me a slapper, which I must have misunderstood as an actual slap, so slapped him round the face. Was actually meant to be a kiss. Getting blackout drunk and flipping the couches in my common room over, and then trying to wrestle multiple people. Yeah, that was an interesting morning. When I was 3 years old, I thought my family's fish was hungry, so I poured chocolate milk into the fish bowl to feed it with only good intentions. The fish wasn't hungry, it died. This comment will absolutely never be seen, but I'm posting it. I can be part of the fun too. Allegedly, when I was a toddler, I woke up in the middle of the night with explosive diarrhea, waddled into my parents' bedroom, crawled into bed with them and promptly fell asleep. They woke up covered in my crap. I have no recollection of this. I have been informed that when I was a kid I finger painted my crib and its immediate surroundings with poop. I have also been informed that we had a jacuzzi in the house we lived in until I was 4, and that one time I stopped up the jets with poop so they sprayed all over my mom when she went to use it. My dad passed away 10 years ago, but before he died, he told me that one day he took me to the store. We were standing in line at the checkout, and I turned around. I was around 3-4 at the time. Behind us was this, apparently because I don't remember, enormous woman. I looked at her with wide eyes and this happened. Dad, she's fat. Dad, no son. No she's not. Me, no dad, she's fat. Meanwhile the woman is staring daggers at my dad. He had to try so hard not to laugh, not at the woman, but at me. Dad, son, stop it. She's not fat. Me, in a childlike sing-song voice. She's a real fatty, she's a fatty boom latty, a real fat fatty, she's a fatty boom balatti, a fun fat fatty, she's a fatty boom balatti. My dad had to hurry me out of the store because of my sudden a cappella improv song, which likely destroyed this woman's self-esteem and made her want to go home and gorge herself on cake. Even today, thinking about this, it makes me feel awful. I know I was really young at the time, but WTF brain? Why would my brain make me do something so awful? I don't know if that woman is still around today, but hey, if you're a Redditor, I want you to know that I am sorry for that. If it's any comfort, I am not verbally abusive to overweight obese people anymore. I've changed my ways. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.